boy, do I hope that that's a good game, because I'm not sure that the next game on the Thanksgiving slate is going to be anything good to watch. We got the Dallas Cowboys going up against the Giants, and at this point, there's not much great to say about either of these teams. You look at the win that the Cowboys were able to have last week against the Commanders, and you think, wow, that's so impressive. But then you realize that it relied on 3 missed kicks, 2 kickoff return touchdowns, 1 onside return touchdown. This was not a beatdown or a solid win in the way that it looks. But I will say that it looked a lot better than the Giants looked on Sunday, and that's for sure. And this looks like a team that is completely turned on Brian Daboll, and you see it from Malik Neighbors after the game. I think it's going to permeate through the rest of the season until they get this guy out of there. I think Brian Daboll could be a good coach, but this has not worked out in New York. I think the Cowboys are going to win, but you might want to have an early Thanksgiving dinner through this game, because this is not going to be one worth watching, in my opinion. What do you guys think?
This is a Giants team in free fall. It was you bench Daniel Jones, you start Tommy DeVito, he gets sacked about I believe it was 6 times, may have been even more than that. The Giants O line feels like they've given up. The Daniel Jones era, is over. Baker Mayfield looked fantastic against his defense, which also looks like it's given up. Yeah, it's just the move to start Tommy DeVito. You think he's a fan favorite. They had some key injuries to watch. Illuminor suffered a quad injury in the first half against Tampa Bay. But on the other side, you got Cooper Rush, who threw 2 touchdowns. It didn't look terrible for the Cowboys. I think at this point, you just got to think about which team is going to be playing harder for their coach and for themselves. More so for themselves. I don't think either of these teams are playing for their coach, and that's a big point going into this game. Cowboys are a 3.5 point spread at home. I have no confidence laying the number in Detroit, starting Tommy DeVito, and just the issues they've had on the defensive side of the ball, where they have players. Dexter Lawrence was still playing well into the first half of that game. It's just not happening. They don't have the weapons. Tyrone Tracy got bottled up last week against, and that's one player who I think might have a bounce back in terms of, if you want to take a prop bet on it, is Tyrone Tracy against this Dallas rush defense. Maybe he goes a little bit over. Maybe the Giants are able to move the ball a little bit. I do kind of like their over 16.5, just based on the holes on the defensive side of the ball for the Cowboys. But even if you have Cooper Rush, you still have Jake Ferguson, you still have CeeDee Lamb, you still have playmakers you can get the ball to. I think their offensive line actually played pretty well against the Commanders for Cooper Rush to be able to at least move the ball down the field. The defense obviously did step up against Jaden Daniels, and I think that's a bright spot if you're going into this week against Tommy DeVito. I don't see how you go anywhere but the Cowboys in this game. So we'll see. I'm not touching the over-under. It may be ugly. This could be a 9-10 game. But I think the Cowboys are going to win this one.
I do not believe we are going to see Tommy DeVito either. I think Drew Lock is going to get the start. I think Tommy DeVito has if I'm not mistaken, a forearm injury. So we'll see if he's good to go. I think he's doubtful to play. But just bigger picture for the Giants, I don't see how Joe Shane or Brian Daboll survived the season. You look at just the overall just picture what they did. You pay Daniel Jones. He's not on the team anymore. You don't pay Saquon Barkley. He's probably at least Offensive Player of the Year favorite right now, if not MVP favorite. You also don't re-sign Xavier McKinney, who is Defensive Player of the Year favorite. the amount of talent that's walked out of the door, um, and the talent that you decided to keep, I just don't see how they keep their jobs. A guy like Azeez Ojulari, we all knew he was on the last year of his contract. You knew you weren't going to re-sign him after the season, more than likely, and now he's out for the year. You get no return on investment for him. Joe Shane, I feel like he's really done a bad job putting this team together. And again, with a guy like Bill Belichick out there, or even Mike Vrabel, we mentioned, so many guys out there, I don't see how either of these guys, Joe Shane or Brian Daboll, keep their jobs. And it's still a very enticing job to have, to be honest with you. I think they're going to have a high pick in the draft. I've told you guys behind the scenes, I think Trevor Lawrence is a possible candidate to end up on the New York Giants. If you think about it, like as we mentioned with Shedeur Sanders, I think one of the places he wouldn't want to go is New York, just given their history. But yeah, I think Dallas rolls over them. And yeah, honestly, you look at Dallas's remaining schedule, the next 3 weeks, they could wind up 7-7, make it an interesting year. Keep an eye on them.
And the Jermaine Illuminor injury for New York as well. Just another blow to them.
Yeah. The offensive line's been beat up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it definitely feels like the end. And I do want to reiterate, I think that a guy like Brian Daboll, what he's been able to do on the offensive side of the football, just even 2 short years ago with Daniel Jones leading them to a playoff victory, that just I don't think that he's someone to write off in this league. I think whether it's as a high-end OC or if he gets another shot and he's able to get the right quarterback, I would keep an eye on Brian Daboll just as a coach. I feel like this Giants team has definitely given up on him at this point, but I still think he should be given a shot. I don't know. That's not just because he's an former Alabama national championship winning OC. Roll Tide.
If he were to lose his job, do you think he is a more favorable hire than a guy like Joe Brady?
No.
Okay.
It's hard to say.
Could see him.
You took away.
I could see him go back and take that Buffalo job. I would love Daboll back at that OC in Buffalo. Oh my God.
I thought you meant as a head coach.
No, I do mean as a head coach. I think Joe Brady's probably going to get more opportunities moving forward. But I think Daboll could be a better coach than him for sure.
I just think that's recency bias too.
I think you'd also have to. Yeah, I agree, Pat. I think you'd also have to give him a year as an OC to kind of see what he still has. I mean, it's just been a disaster there.
Yeah.
Granted, it's been on Daniel Jones, but
given the right QB.
But who signed off on that though? Who signed off on saying I'm going to let Saquon walk out the door?
True. Well, I mean, it wasn't on him. It wasn't on him.
I'm not talking about Joe Shane. I'm talking about Brian Daboll. I think Joe Shane should be losing his job before Brian Daboll at this point. When you see with the roster that he's given Daboll and the quarterback that he had to work with, Daboll is also go for it.
Yeah, I was going to say I think if they're smart, Joe Shane's the first to go before Brian Daboll. I think you may even keep him for another year, get him a new quarterback, even go with Drew Lock. I mean, see what you got. Because I mean, the guy was able to play for Denver. I think
was shocked that they started DeVito over him.
Yeah, I was too. I think they have weapons on this offense. I think if you have a guy like Drew Lock, who they're not just absolutely hunting Tommy DeVito for, maybe Tyrone Tracy becomes a little bit more involved, and maybe you see what you got there. To be able to move the ball down the field. You still have Darius Slayton, you have Wan'Dale Robinson. Like, I don't know. I don't blame all of this on Brian Daboll at all. He made the decision to bench Daniel Jones, and that's a decision you have to make to bench your franchise quarterback, and I mean you have to give him props for that.
When you talk about cutting a guy who's making $40 million a year. That
Yeah.
was definitely the entire organization was done. I think Brian Dable was probably done with Daniel Jones.
Well, we
maybe
saw him
a
almost
year
trying to
ago.
rip his head off on
Right.
multiple occasions
Oh
on
yeah,
national
exactly.
television.
I dubbed him Angry Brian Dable for a reason because that was all you'd see when they would cut to the sidelines. But do we have any more thoughts on this game, or are we able to move on to what I believe to be one of the better games of the week?
My last thought would be, I think, especially on Thanksgiving, playing in Jerry World, Tommy DeVito, Cooper Rush, first half under.
Sun's gonna be out. Sun's gonna be baking down on that field, getting in the eyes.
Exactly. You think Jerry ain't cooking up the cooking up the recipe for it? Yeah.
With those QBs, yeah, I don't hate that.